Hello, and welcome to ELTM Podcasts. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you with me today for an episode that's going to dive deep into the art of designing effective and student-centered goals in education. Whether you're an English language teacher or an education professional working in any field, today's discussion is for you. We're going to be talking about 4 key concepts that, when used together, can transform your teaching practice and help you create powerful, meaningful learning experiences. Today's episode is all about SMART objectives, Bloom's taxonomy, understanding your students' needs, and ultimately creating student-focused goals. We'll explore how these concepts intertwine and how you can use them in the classroom to meet your students where they are and guide them to where they need to be. Now, I know that at first glance, all of this may seem like educational jargon, but trust me, by the end of this podcast, you'll have a clear understanding of how these frameworks can become powerful tools in your teaching toolkit. So whether you're in the classroom, designing a curriculum, or even mentoring other teachers, stay tuned because we're going to break all of this down step by step in a way that's creative, actionable, and most importantly, student-focused. So grab your coffee or tea, settle in, and let's start by exploring the magic behind SMART objectives. Let's start with SMART objectives. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard this term before. It's been around for a while, but let's really dig into what it means and how it can elevate the way you set goals, not just for yourself, but for your students as well. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. What's brilliant about SMART objectives is that they force us to move away from vague goals and instead create clear, actionable, and trackable steps. As educators, we often have broad ambitions, like wanting our students to improve their English skills or get better at critical thinking. But how do we break those big ideas into manageable, focused goals that our students can actually achieve? Let's break it down. Specific means that the goal is crystal clear. Instead of saying, I want my students to get better at writing, you might say, I want my students to be able to write a 5-paragraph essay with a clear thesis, supporting arguments, and a conclusion. Then we have measurable. This means you need a way to track progress. Can you measure success? With writing, you could track the number of supporting arguments a student uses or assess the clarity of their thesis statements. Having concrete metrics helps both you and your students see tangible growth. Next is achievable. This is all about making sure the goal is realistic. We can't ask students to jump from writing basic sentences to crafting a novel in a week. Instead, the goals should be something challenging, but within reach. This keeps students motivated and engaged. Relevant means that the goals should align with broader learning outcomes. Ask yourself, is this goal meaningful for the student's overall language development? Does it connect with what they've been working toward? And finally, time-bound. When should this goal be accomplished? Setting a timeline, whether it's by the end of a unit or semester, creates a sense of urgency and helps students stay on track. By keeping our objectives SMART, we not only make our expectations clear, but also set up our students for success because they know exactly what's expected and can work steadily toward it. And this framework isn't just for long-term goals. You can use SMART objectives for daily lessons, weekly assignments, or semester projects. It's flexible, and that's what makes it so valuable. Now let's move on to Bloom's taxonomy and its famous action verbs. Bloom's taxonomy. If you've ever attended an education workshop, this concept has probably popped up at some point. But here's the thing, it's so much more than just a list of words. It's a map for how we can encourage higher order thinking in our students. Bloom's taxonomy divides learning into 6 levels: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. These levels guide how we challenge our students to think and engage with the material. And what's really interesting is that the deeper we go into these levels, the more sophisticated our students' learning becomes. Let's start at the bottom with remember. This is all about recalling facts, basic definitions, or concepts. It's the foundation. You might use verbs like identify, list, or define in your objectives. These are essential for students to build knowledge, but it's only the first step. Next is understand. Here, students are starting to make sense of the information. They can explain concepts in their own words, summarize ideas, and interpret information. Verbs like describe and explain come into play here. As we move up, we hit apply. This is where things get exciting because students are not just learning passively anymore. They're using their knowledge in new situations. Think of verbs like solve, demonstrate, or use. Then we have analyze. This is where critical thinking starts to shine. Students break down information into parts, explore relationships, and compare ideas. Verbs like compare, contrast, and differentiate push students to dig deeper into what they know. Near the top is evaluate. Here, students make judgments about the value of information. They critique, argue, and assess. Verbs like justify, evaluate, and defend challenge students to form opinions and defend their positions. And finally, we arrive at create, the pinnacle of learning. Students synthesize information, bring together ideas, and construct something new. Verbs like design, develop, or compose are used at this stage. What's brilliant about Bloom's taxonomy is that it gives us a blueprint to scaffold learning, ensuring that students don't just memorize facts but engage in higher-order thinking. As teachers, we can use these action verbs to design tasks that not only assess knowledge, but also challenge students to think critically, solve problems, and be creative. Whether you're designing an exam, a project, or even a simple classroom activity, Bloom's taxonomy helps ensure that you're engaging students at multiple levels of thinking. Now let's turn our attention to something deeply fundamental, understanding our students' needs. As teachers, it's easy to focus on the content we need to deliver, the curriculum we need to follow, or the objectives we set. But at the core of great teaching lies an essential question. Who are our students? No two classrooms are the same. Every student comes with their own experiences, strengths, and challenges. Some students may need more support with language. Others might excel in creative projects but struggle with analytical tasks. Some may be more introverted, others more vocal. Understanding these unique needs is crucial in designing lessons that resonate. So how do we get to know our students better? It's not always easy, but it starts with observation and, more importantly, communication. Take time to ask your students about their interests, their goals, and what excites them about learning English. You'd be surprised how much insight a simple conversation can provide. And don't forget that listening is just as important as asking questions. Students often reveal their needs indirectly through their actions, their participation, or even their silences. Moreover, understanding students' needs goes beyond academic performance. Social and emotional factors play a huge role in how students learn. A student who feels anxious, unmotivated, or disconnected is less likely to succeed, no matter how brilliant the lesson plan. Creating a supportive and nurturing environment where students feel safe to express themselves and make mistakes is as essential as the content you teach. By truly understanding our students, we can meet them where they are, rather than forcing them to meet us where we expect them to be. And when we do this, something beautiful happens. Learning becomes personalized, meaningful, and impactful. Finally, let's bring it all together by talking about creating student-focused goals. If you take away one thing from this podcast today, let it be this. Goals should always be centered on the student, not the content. We often get caught up in the idea of covering material. I need to get through this chapter or finish this unit. But education isn't about covering content. It's about uncovering potential. It's about helping students grow, both academically and personally. When we set student-focused goals, we shift from thinking about what we need to teach to what students need to learn. So how do we create these goals? First, start with what we've already discussed. SMART objectives in Bloom's taxonomy. Use those as frameworks, but filter everything through the lens of your students' needs. Ask yourself, what do they need to succeed? What are their personal learning goals? Maybe one student needs to work on building confidence in speaking. Another might need to refine their critical thinking skills. Your goals should reflect this variety and focus on helping each student make meaningful progress, not just ticking off curriculum boxes. When students feel that the goals you've set are tailored to them, when they see that their learning journey is personal and relevant, they are more likely to engage, to invest effort, and to succeed. And at the end of the day, isn't that what we're all striving for as educators? So there you have it, the power of SMART objectives, Bloom's taxonomy, understanding students' needs, and creating student-focused goals. These are not just theories or frameworks, they are living, breathing parts of what it means to teach effectively. When we combine these concepts, we create classrooms where every student feels seen, supported, and challenged to reach their full potential. Thank you so much for joining me today on ELTM Podcasts. I hope you found these insights helpful and that they inspire you to reflect on your own teaching practice. Remember, education isn't just about teaching, it's about empowering. Keep that at the forefront of your mind as you continue your amazing work with your students. Until next time, keep setting SMART goals, keep using those Bloom's action verbs, and most importantly, keep focusing on the unique needs of the incredible students you have the privilege of teaching.